different perspectives to infuse. But at the end of the day, you're going to hear ultimately my perspective, right? It might be a little different than yours, so just keep that in mind as you listen. Fourth, I just want to thank all you guys for being here, right? When I look around the room, I see our family, my mom's surviving siblings. I see a number of my second and third cousins. I also see a bunch of our friends, Joan's friends, John's friends, my friend, Faith's friends. We also have Faith calling in here on FaceTime from DC because she is very pregnant and sick right now. Otherwise, she would be here with her husband, Chris. And I also see a number of people that we also work with, which is going to come up with. People in violence reduction, people in housing policy, people that work in government and therapy. So thank you guys all for being here to support. Some of you guys may have seen, because of my mom's financial situation, despite how hard they tried, and not having life insurance because of the country we live in, unfortunately, with her life insurance and her conditions, we had to do a GoFundMe, which was kind of embarrassing, to be honest. But we raised $13,000 in 24 hours. And that shows you how much that my mom and her kids and her husband are loved, right? So thank you guys for that, particularly if you contributed. And lastly, my mom talked a lot, and I got that from her. And so this is a close to 15-minute eulogy. Everyone needs their 15 minutes of fame, and God knows my mom deserved those 15 minutes of fame. So we're going to do that. I'm going to try not to cry through a lot of this, but it's probably going to happen, so bear with me. After we're done with the eulogy, my brother-in-law, EJ, is going to be praying the rosary for people that want to participate. It'll be Kim praying the rosary. And then EJ will be doing some Chaplet of Mercy, I believe. Is that right, EJ?
That's right.
Yeah, because those were an integral part of her daily life.
That's
She
right.
said the prayer the Chaplet of Mercy every day, 3 o'clock, and 4
That's right.
rosaries a day for each of us.
So that's also, we picked 3 to start here. Who's Catholic in the room? We got a decent amount of Catholics here, come on. 3 o'clock's a pretty key time to pray in the Chaplet of Mercy. All right, so everybody hear me okay in the back? All right. So this is a eulogy for my mom, and obviously from her son, Nick. So there's no way to sugarcoat it. My mom, Lorraine Beverly Cotter, had a hard life. Born August 23rd, 1956, to Shara Schmidt, and raised by both her mom and her steelworking Uncle Bill, she was born and raised in a low-income home in Pittsburgh's Knoxville neighborhood on Rochelle Street. One of 8 children, she was part of a large Catholic family, just like her husband Brian was. She is survived by that loving, dedicated husband who took care of her to the very end, and you did, Dad. Her 4 children, Faith, Joan, John, and me. Her unofficial extra sons, Connor, Tegan, Dylan, and Corey, dear friends of my brother and I. Her brother Larry, her older sister Sandra, and her younger sister Kim. Our many, many cousins, and her closest friends, Diane, Kim, and Debbie. She is preceded by her mom, her Uncle Bill, her brothers Gary and Norman, her sisters Lainey and Peggy, and the children that she also lost. Early on, my mom lost her biological father and her little brother. Throughout her life, she experienced additional significant losses as siblings, other family members, friends, and more were taken away from her way too soon. Aside from losses, she also faced significant hardships, both within and outside of her home. Starting in early adulthood, my mom carried the enormous weight of multiple life-changing chronic health conditions. As a result, we almost lost my mom many times. She had so many surgeries, in fact, she became allergic to anesthesia. She lost several pregnancies. She cared for our younger brother during 2 bouts of cancer, one in his blood, one in his spine, accompanying him to every treatment and residing with him for every single hospital stay. The few out-of-state family trips we got to go on, because they were paid for by various organizations because John had cancer, are some of the only times when Mom was able to leave the tri-state area, let alone Pittsburgh, with some exceptions before she had us. She also had comforted me as I almost died twice as a teenager, both instances due to the same kind of medical neglect that my mom experienced again and again and again throughout her life. She battled poverty our entire lives and the instability, toxic stress, and humiliation that can come with poverty, and often does. As the weight of health issues like epilepsy, congestive heart failure, COPD, type 2 diabetes, immobility, diabetes-induced blindness, and more took their toll on her, she became increasingly isolated from the world and rarely was able to leave the house for years and years, though Facebook and the video game Farmville kept her connected to people from all over, at least when she could still see. If there's a bad thing that could happen to a person, my mom probably experienced it, as you're kind of getting from the first bit of this. These experiences shaped who she was, and it would be untrue to say that these circumstances and their consequences did not also have an impact on my dad, my siblings, me, and our extended friends and family who are here, because they did, tremendously so, both directly and indirectly. And yet, my mom persevered. And she persevered because she wanted to both care for and be with my dad, my siblings, our extended family, and her friends. Never once complaining about the pain she endured, however intense. And that is not hyperbolic. My mom never complained about the pain she went through. Health issue after health issue, loss after loss, she survived, always fighting for life. On my mom's side, she was the first to go to community college, where she studied to be an accountant. And because of the immense sacrifices that both her and my dad made for me and my siblings, Faith, Joe, John, and I are the first college graduates in our immediate family and among the first on my entire mom's side. After developing epilepsy, she could not work a traditional job, but she raised us. Early on, her and my dad brought us here from the hilltop to Brookline so we could have a better life. Years before Brookline Boulevard had these food tours that annoy the shit out of me. Brookline became her everything, as it did for my dad, my siblings, and me. As evidence, all but one of us literally still lives in Brookline. And my sister Faith does so spiritually. She was never afraid to beg and borrow if it meant keeping us fed, sheltered, and clothed. If government programs weren't enough, or we were right above those eligibility cutoffs, she would call everyone she knew for help, never too proud when it came to ensuring the material needs for her children were met. She even won a local televised competition to KDKA. Did it go out? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
She even won a local televised competition for KDKA to get us a new heater when I was a kid, something that humiliated me at the time, but fills me with pride now. People would look down on my mom, but we never became homeless because of her. She was the woman who'd asked my dad to take us through the McDonald's drive-thru to get 6 cups of ice water and the free ice cream samples they used to give out. When a cashier would occasionally resist, my mom said she was quote-unquote a paying customer. As a family of 6, she's also the woman who would take us to Ponderosa Steakhouse on special occasions and proudly say, we'll take 5 ice waters and 1 Pepsi for the birthday boy. I always thought that was a funny story. My mom was a force of nature, one that both created and one that also destroyed. A published writer, it was her gift of writing and telling it like it is that led all her children to become published writers themselves. Her first publication, a poem called Raggedy Ann, was a deep pride of hers. With a camcorder gifted to us by a dear family friend, my mom documented moments of life around the house and in our yard, narrating the beauty she saw and wanting to leave her thoughts for us, just in case she passed away when we were little kids. It's the same camera my sisters used to film princess plays on that, and the one that John, Connor, and I used to make deeply inappropriate short films, including one we called the 100 Acres Wood Massacre, using ketchup for blood, baby powder for explosions, the Titanic soundtrack for the vibes, and Winnie the Pooh stuffies as the subjects. For better and for worse, she was the absolute epitome of do not go quietly into that good night. Someone who would kick your ass at a wedding if you said something wrong about her kids. A couple people have experienced that here. And one that kept fighting literally to the end, waving and flailing her arms at nurses in the hours before she lost consciousness. That's my mom. When a man abused one of her sisters back when my mom was just a teenager, she smashed that asshole's beloved Gran Torino with a tire iron. And in a separate instance, threw a brick at him to stop him from beating on her sister. After which that same man turned around and hit my mom directly in the face with that brick. A girl from Knoxville, my mom had grit and courage. That same courage that got her through 2 medical comas and much suffering from chronic health issues and terrible, unlucky circumstances. Having lived within low-income and working-class city neighborhoods her entire life, her Pittsburghese made the YouTuber Pittsburgh Dad look like a suburban tourist from out of state. Her sentences were less distinct words per se, and more one giant slurring of those words together. She and my dad endured my siblings and me being a huge pain in their asses, particularly me, I think, in early childhood, taking me on many a hospital visit when, say, my best friend Connor accidentally threw me through a 2nd-story glass window landing in the bush below, when my brother, our friends, and I would turn out the lights, put pillow sacks over our heads, and run at each other at full speed. I don't still understand what the point of that game was besides violence, but we enjoyed it growing up. Connor is also the one who accidentally stabbed me with a knife at least once or twice, and got me hit by multiple moving vehicles. So thank you, Connor, for that. And my mom took me to all those different hospital visits, and Connor on some of his hospital visits. My mom was the woman who annually blew up an inflatable swimming pool in our front yard on Rossmore Avenue with her breath alone. Apparently not being able to lay away both the pool and an air pump, every summer she'd have her cigarettes in one hand, her Diet Pepsi in the other, and she wouldn't stop huffing and buffing until it was fully inflated. That's both resilience and that is love. She changed the lyrics to the song "You Are My Sunshine" to make them more optimistic, changing the lyrics "Never take my sunshine away" to "You will be my sunshine always." To her, Faith was her sunshine, Joan was her rainbow, John was her snowflake, and I was her moonlight. And we still have the notes you drew for us, Mom, the ones you used to put in our lunchboxes at school, an awkward heart with arms and legs outstretched towards their children. Though her nicknames for us, sometimes proved confounding, albeit loving. Like the time Father Victor from Resi pointed out that my mom had once named us Sunshine Cotter, Moonlight Cotter, Rainbow Cotter, and Snowflake Cotter in a public-facing directory for elementary school, instead of using our real names. John's nickname obviously hasn't aged too well in this current political context. The snowflake that he still is. My mom was the one who painstakingly sought places for my dad and us that would become family traditions, like the former Riley's pumpkin patch in the North Hills, to the Christmas tree farm in Monongahela, and from Round Hill Farm in Elizabeth to Ogle Bay in West Virginia. And she got us connected to Resurrection Church right up the street from here and their annual Fun Flare Carnival. For one of those carnivals, Faith couldn't make it up because she had just got surgery on her leg. So my mom asked Joan, John, Connor, and I to go up in her stead and win all of Faith's favorite stuffies, which we lovingly called the freakish things back in the day. Besides her family, her faith was what sustained her and gave her suffering both meaning and purpose. There are many Catholics in this world, but not like my mom. I'd argue that most didn't almost become a nun, had an altar in their home, had an image of the Virgin Mary or Jesus on every single wall of that home, including, by the way, the statue out front of the house that Connor used to call Body Bag Mary because my mom wrapped it in plastic every winter to keep it from peeling. Prayed the Chaplet of Mercy every single day at 3 p.m. for 40 plus years with my dad. Said the rosary for years on the phone with one of her best friends, Kim, without ever missing a single day, and would bribe her kids with McDonald's Happy Meals so they'd sit in the back of the church at Resi here in Brookline and St. Basil's and the Passionate Convent in Carrick for hours-long adoration during holy days of obligation, and going to Mass on Sundays, Mondays for the Novena, and Fridays just for the hell of it. My mom was as Catholic as they come, and she saw her suffering as something she could offer up to both save souls and help those in need. If a friend or family member needed a place to stay or food to eat, my mom would house and feed them, sometimes for significant lengths of time. Tegan stayed with us, Kim stayed with us, Kim Ganther, other friends stayed with us, many over the years. When family members were separated from each other because of hardship, poverty, or some other circumstance, she'd write them letters to make sure they knew that they were still loved. If a stranger needed money, she'd give it to them. If someone needed prayer, she'd pray for them. When she was in immense pain, she'd offer it up to save souls stuck in purgatory, an ancient Catholic tradition. I'm sure there's a hell of a lot of souls that she had to have saved over the years through her pain. Her desire to use her own suffering as the thing that could give her purpose is part of what drove, in part, all of my siblings and me towards helping professions. From providing therapy to doing investigative journalism, and from teaching English to refugees to combating poverty, community gun violence, and racial and economic segregation. My mom's legacy is one of resilience, her own brand of love, and using her own suffering to relate to, give purpose to, and ultimately help others in need. That legacy is embodied in us and also saved us time and time again, from helping me and my brother survive our own struggles with health issues, very similar to my mom, and aiding me in my prior battle with prescription-induced dependency. To my dad, my siblings, and me learning to never, ever give up in the face of all odds, despite how hard life can be, and will be. On August 23rd of this year, my mom would have celebrated her 70th birthday. That same day, my mom and my dad would have also celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. The fusion of her birthday with her wedding day reflects something deeply profound about my mom. The purpose of marriage was family, which was the hallmark of her life. While the last few months were extremely hard for my mom, I will always thank God that they brought our family together in more ways than I can say. Because of significant loss, poverty, and trauma, and the consequences that sort of cyclical violence can bring, much of both my immediate and extended family were estranged from each other for almost all of my young adult and adult life, which was very different from our connection during my childhood and all the times we spent together on Rochelle Street in Knoxville. And as I look through this room, we have a bunch of those family members here today, which is beautiful. My mom did that. But it was my mom actively dying these past few months that ultimately brought our family back together. All in our own way, many of us found some level of reconciliation, reconnection, memory, love, and closure these last few months, both with my mom and with each other, something I will forever be thankful for. On her very last day on earth, July 15, 2026, unlike so many other days of her life, it was peaceful, and she seemed at peace. My dad, my siblings, and I sat with her all day, and my sister Faith called in virtually multiple times from Washington, D.C., and in the final hours before her death, having been completely sedated since the night prior, which was a less kind night, I sat alone with her in inpatient hospice at Mercy Hospital, her room overlooking the South Pittsburgh neighborhoods that she had called home her entire life. I went through every memory that came to mind from my birth until that moment, while playing a playlist I put together of all her favorite 80s synth pop, 70s rock, and Bobby Sherman songs. No one loved Bobby Sherman like my mom did. In fact, I don't think anyone loved Bobby Sherman like my mom did. The songs she used to play on blast as she danced my siblings, my dad, and I around the living room when we were kids. She'd listened to her favorite song, Bridge Over Troubled Water, on repeat when she was going through hard times. So she listened to that song a lot. Her love of music, along with my dad's love of hardcore punk, is what made me become a musician to begin with, and is what made my siblings and I deep lovers of music ourselves. Listening to music is much of what me and my mom did in the final months before she died, listening to both her favorites and all the music that my other best friend Dylan and I made over the years together, with our band's Awkward Friend Dave, and Today Is the Best Day Ever. At the very end of my going over all those memories with her that night, I told her it was okay to go to heaven. And I'm not making this up. The whole day, her face hadn't moved, and her eyebrows went up twice as soon as I said that. It's okay for you to go, Mom. For the first time in hours, that's what happened. And when my sister Joan got back to the hospital, I sat next to my mom, playing the song Tonight by Social Distortion on repeat, and wrote this very eulogy for her. I then read it aloud to both my mom and my sister. After I finished, my mom's breathing started to slow down considerably, another thing that felt deeply serendipitous. Getting a feeling that we should say the rosary, also making that up. Joan, you felt it. Joan's like, we got to say the rosary, Nick. And Joan started to pray, and on the very last glory be, my mom died. Not making that up. Mom, I'm glad your suffering has finally come to an end. Know that you did so much with it, as have your husband and your children. You are so deeply loved. Rest in peace with everyone you've lost. We'll see you later, alligator, which is when my mom would usually say, after a while, crocodile. Thank you.